Welcome to Old Worlds for Sleep, a place where history breathes softly, where forgotten empires, lost travelers, and ancient whispers return, not to frighten but to lull you into stillness. Tonight we follow a road that began before memory, a path of silk and dust, color and silence, stretching across centuries and souls. Each step will take us deeper into worlds that once were, where every stone still remembers a story, and every voice long gone still echoes in the wind. So dim your lights, let the noise of the day fall away. Breathe slowly, in and out. You don't have to dream tonight. The story will do it for you. This is the road that remembered, and somewhere out there, it's still waiting for you to walk it. Hey there, traveler. Tonight, before you drift off, I want you to imagine something. No trains, no phones, no GPS, no road signs. Just mud, sky, and the long stretch of earth between your village and the unknown. You're a peasant in the Middle Ages, calloused hands, tired feet, a lifetime of sameness behind you. And for reasons that seem noble or foolish depending on who you ask, you're about to leave home. Maybe you're chasing work. Maybe a priest convinced you a pilgrimage will scrub your sins clean. Or maybe you just want to see if the horizon is as far as everyone says. Leaving your village wasn't a simple stroll. It was a public announcement of pain. People would stare. A few would pity you. Others would whisper, "Poor soul, they'll be bones by winter." Because outside those crooked fences, comfort ends and survival begins. But let's start at dawn. You stand by the gate, your possessions packed tight, meaning a crust of bread, a ragged cloak, and maybe a stick with aspirations of being a walking staff. Your mother hands you a small charm, carved wood to ward off evil. The village priest mumbles a blessing, listing dangers like an anxious weather forecast. Wolves, bandits, demons, bad luck, and other peasants. If he really likes you, he might even hand you half a turnip for the road. A luxury meal in root form. Before you go, your grandmother gives a wave. She's 38 but looks 93, because medieval life was a high-speed aging potion. Your cousin shouts something encouraging, mostly warnings about getting eaten, and your younger siblings try to steal your bread. It's affection, medieval style. Then you walk. The road stretches ahead, more suggestion than path. Mud sucks at your ankles, carts creak past, pigs wander where logic does not. The first few miles feel almost exciting. You hum a tune, admire the hedges, even wave at a passing monk. By mile 10 the song has died. By mile 15 so have your arches. You think about turning back. But pride keeps you moving. Because to return so soon would be admitting defeat. To yourself, to the 7 villagers who promised you'd fail, and to that one smug goose who seemed to know it. So you keep walking. How long could you last, honestly? A day? 2? Would you still keep going if your stomach growled louder than your thoughts? If the horizon stopped being a dream and started being a punishment? There's a strange thing about exhaustion. It strips away civilization faster than plague. By the second night, comfort means not directly in mud. By the third, you start talking to your stick. And by the fourth, you realize just how far home really was, not in miles but in warmth. The truth is, most medieval peasants never traveled far. Their entire world fit inside a few fields, a church, and a tavern if luck was generous. Why risk it? At home you had bad bread, bad weather, and familiar misery. Out here you had all three, plus uncertainty. But something still pulls you onward. Maybe it's faith. Maybe it's rumor. Maybe it's the idea that the world must be more than one muddy lane and the same gossip every Sunday. There's a quiet hope beneath the blisters. As dusk falls, you stop by a roadside hedge. The air smells of wet hay and distant firewood. You look back once. The village is gone, swallowed by the gray. Ahead is nothing, just darkness and the faint sound of wind over empty ground. So you sit, adjust your sack, and laugh softly. Because you realize this is what freedom feels like. Terrifying, ridiculous, and cold. You nibble your bread, whisper a half-remembered prayer, and wonder if tomorrow someone will finally offer you a place to sleep that doesn't moo, leak, or bite. And as you close your eyes, the night hums. You're part of it now. A small soul on a vast road, driven by faith, hunger, or maybe just stubborn curiosity. Tell me, traveler, would you have taken that first step, knowing how uncertain every one after would be? Would you walk into the dark with only a stick and hope to keep you company? And if you did, would you ever find your way back home? The day you leave isn't dramatic. There are no trumpets, no farewells shouted from castle walls. Just the dull sound of a wooden gate closing behind you and the faint smell of smoke from breakfast fires. You turn once, expecting someone to wave. They don't. They're already getting on with their day. After all, people leave. People vanish. Life in the Middle Ages didn't pause for absences. You try to remember the last thing you saw of home. Maybe it was the crooked fence your father built years ago, leaning like an old drunk. Maybe the sagging thatch roof that always leaked right over your bed. Those things had frustrated you for years, but now they feel sacred. Funny, isn't it? The moment you leave, even misery starts to shine with nostalgia. Your village was small, maybe 20-30 souls if everyone survived winter. The same faces at dawn, the same voices at dusk. The blacksmith's hammer was your alarm clock. The priest's sermon your evening lullaby. There was comfort in that repetition, the quiet rhythm of predictability. You could hate it and love it at once. Now, out here on the road, even the wind sounds foreign. It moves differently across open land, colder, less forgiving. You think of your mother, stooped at the hearth. Of your grandmother, whose back bent like the bow of a ship that's weathered too many storms. And suddenly the road ahead doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It feels like distance, but you keep walking. Because that's what people do when they don't have the luxury of stopping. A pilgrim keeps walking for salvation. A laborer keeps walking for pay. And a runaway keeps walking because turning back means punishment. You are all three in a way, sinner, worker, fugitive. Your journey isn't marked by miles, but by thoughts. Every step is a prayer or a curse depending on how much your feet hurt. By noon, the sun burns through the mist. You pass a man pushing a cart full of onions. He nods. You nod. It's the medieval version of friendship, silent acknowledgement of mutual suffering. A group of children wave from a nearby field, shouting something about wolves. You wave back. You pretend not to notice that one of them is holding a sling. You stop at a crossroads where a small shrine stands, covered in wax and wilted flowers. The face of a saint peers from behind soot. Someone has scrawled words beneath it, protect those who wander. You whisper, I'll hold you to that. How many people, you wonder, have stood in this exact spot? How many prayed for the same safety, the same luck, the same impossible mercy? And how many simply vanished on the way, forgotten beneath miles of mud and rumor? You touch the charm your mother gave you. It's warm from your palm. You want to believe it matters, that something or someone is keeping count of your steps. Because on this road, belief is lighter than bread and easier to carry. The first night, you find a patch of dry earth beside a ditch. You pull your cloak tight, rest your head on your bundle, and stare up at the sky. The stars seem closer than ever, glittering like promises you're too tired to believe. You try to sleep, but every sound feels amplified. A rustle of grass, a distant hoot. Your mind begins to whisper the names of everyone you left behind, like a prayer list that won't end. Would you have left if you'd known how heavy silence could feel? Would you trade adventure for another evening by the fire, even if it meant the same dull life, the same faces, the same aching predictability? At dawn, the world looks new again. Dew coats your cloak, your fingers numb and stiff. You rise, stretch, and laugh because you've survived a night outdoors. Something you'll brag about later if you live long enough to tell the story. You start walking again because there's nothing else to do. By midday, hunger gnaws. You pass a small farmhouse and consider asking for bread. But the smoke from its chimney smells of meat, and you realize that approaching strangers is riskier than hunger. A hungry traveler is suspicious by default. And besides, you still have your dignity, that thin, fragile crust of pride that hunger hasn't yet devoured. The road winds between hedges. A crow follows you, landing and hopping, like a companion that's also slightly judging you. You speak to it, because why not? After 2 days alone, conversation feels like a miracle, even if it's one-sided. You think of stories told by the old men in the tavern, tales of distant lands, miracles, and cursed travelers who never returned. Back then, those stories felt like entertainment. Now they feel like warnings. You realize that every hero's journey starts with optimism and ends with blisters. The day grows long. Your feet ache, your bread hardens, your faith flickers. But the road continues, and so do you. Because maybe, just maybe, somewhere beyond the next hill, someone's waiting. A kind farmer, a fellow traveler, a sign that says you've made it. And as the sun sinks, painting the world in gold and dust, you tell yourself this. If home was safety, then the road must be courage. So tell me, if you were standing at that same gate, bag in hand, heart full of fear and hope, Would you still walk away? Would you choose comfort, or the story that waits beyond the fence? By the third day, your excitement has evaporated somewhere between the second blister and the third patch of mud you stepped in. The road has lost its novelty. Now it's just a long brown test of endurance. The world stretches endlessly forward, and your feet, poor loyal things, seem to scream in languages even priests couldn't translate. It's strange how quickly a dream can turn into routine. Yesterday you were a traveler, an idea, a story in motion. Today you're a pair of sore ankles and a walking complaint wrapped in a ragged cloak. The first few miles taught you the truth about the medieval road. It isn't a path, it's a personality test. It rewards patience, punishes pride, and measures your courage one puddle at a time. Every so often, a cart rattles by, a merchant perhaps, or a pilgrim richer than you, which is to say anyone. They don't stop. They nod, sometimes as though to say, "Ah, another fool chasing salvation." And then they vanish into the mist. You try to count the steps, but after a few hundred, numbers lose meaning. What replaces them is rhythm, foot, breath, ache, repeat. Your world shrinks to that pattern. Everything else, heaven, hell, hope, drifts somewhere above the clouds. The landscape changes slowly. Villages appear like mirages, a few cottages clinging to a church tower. You pass through them quietly, head down, trying to look harmless. People stare. Children point. A dog growls. A woman selling turnips offers a look that suggests she's considering whether you're worth barking at. You nod politely and move on. It's not that people are cruel, they're cautious. In this world, strangers bring trouble, plague, theft, rumors, or all three. A traveler is both curiosity and threat. You remind them that there's a world beyond their fences, and most don't want to be reminded. Still, there's a beauty to the road. Between the discomforts, there are moments that feel almost holy. A break in the clouds. A hill where you can see miles of countryside washed in mist. A flock of birds rising all at once, like thoughts escaping a crowded mind. You stop and watch, letting your breath catch up. The wind hums through the grass, soft and endless. For a moment, you forget the ache. You almost forget yourself. Have you ever stood somewhere and realized how small you are, and instead of fear, felt peace? Would you trade comfort for that feeling, that fragile glimpse of eternity that fits between two steps? You press on. Hunger gnaws again. You chew the last of your bread, now more fossil than food, and promise yourself you'll find something better by nightfall. Spoiler, you won't. The road begins to tilt upward, and your optimism slides down behind you. Sweat mixes with dust, and your cloak, once a proud symbol of independence, now smells like despair marinated in goat. You reach a crossroads marked by a weathered signpost. One arm points toward Canterbury, the other toward somewhere worse. You choose Canterbury, not for faith but because the letters are easier to read. Evening falls faster here. The sky bruises into shades of purple and ash. You search for shelter but find only hedges and suspiciously flat patches of ground that suggest something larger once slept there, probably with teeth. You keep walking because the mind plays cruel tricks when it's tired. Every shadow looks like company, every rustle like a threat. The road, once a symbol of escape, begins to feel like a trap that stretches in both directions. You start to talk, not to anyone in particular, just to the air, to your stick, to the road itself. We're doing fine, you tell them. We're alive, we're learning. Learning what exactly? That freedom costs sleep? That courage tastes a lot like fear when you're hungry? Your thoughts drift home again. You picture your grandmother's hands kneading dough, your father's voice calling the dog, the smell of wet earth after rain. You left because you wanted more. But maybe more is just another word for not enough. Would you still walk away if you knew that adventure often looks like exhaustion? Would you trade the dull safety of home for the sharp truth of the world? You find a patch of grass near a stream and drop to your knees. The water is cold, clear, and unbothered by your suffering. You drink too fast, cough, laugh, and then simply sit, watching ripples move across the surface. The moon rises. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, its voice hollow and ancient. You lie back, eyes half open, listening to the slow heartbeat of the land. Tomorrow will be the same, more walking, more hunger, more discovery disguised as discomfort. But tonight, you let yourself believe that you're part of something bigger, that the road remembers you even if no one else will. And as sleep creeps in, your last thought drifts toward the stars. Maybe all travelers are the same, hungry, lost, and secretly hoping that suffering means the story will be worth telling someday. So tell me, if this were your journey, how far would you go before turning back? At what point does courage become foolishness? And if you had to choose between regret and adventure, which one would keep you awake longer tonight? By the fourth night, you've learned a few hard truths. First, the ground is never as soft as it looks. Second, cold doesn't care about faith. And third, the only creatures guaranteed to have shelter in medieval Europe are cows. The road, for all its open promise, is stingy with comfort. And those are for merchants and pilgrims with coins jingling like small miracles in their pockets. You, on the other hand, are the kind of traveler who jingles only when your knees crack. So when the rain starts, not a drizzle but the full biblical "we might need another ark" variety, you do what generations of desperate wanderers did before you. You look for a barn. And then there it is, a faint light through the rain, a structure rising like salvation itself. A farmer's barn built for hooves, not humans. But at this point, you're not picky about the details. You approach slowly, cautious but hopeful. The air smells of damp straw and manure, an aroma that medieval poets might call earthy if they were being kind. You knock on the farmhouse door. There's a pause. Then it opens just wide enough for a man's suspicious eyes to peek through. You explain your situation: the road, the rain, the promise of no trouble. You even try a smile, which after 4 days without soap, probably isn't helping. The farmer looks you up and down, sighs, and mutters something about pity and God. He gestures toward the barn. Congratulations. You've just been granted medieval 5-star accommodation, complete with straw bedding, animal roommates, and complimentary fleas. Inside, it's warm in the way that only shared body heat can be. A few cows glance your way, unimpressed. Chickens shuffle in the corner. Somewhere in the dark, a pig grunts its disapproval of your presence. You find a patch of straw, drop your cloak, and sink down with a groan that sounds older than your years. The straw pokes through your clothes, the air hums with the scent of life. Strong, pungent, unavoidable. Have you ever slept somewhere so unpleasant that it became almost comforting? Would you trade the smell of home for the warmth of survival? As your body adjusts, your mind starts to wander. You think about the cows, how lucky they seem, unbothered by rain or hunger, content in their bovine simplicity. Maybe they know something you don't. Maybe wisdom really is chewing the same mouthful of grass until the world makes sense. You watch one blink slowly at you as if to say, "Welcome to our kingdom, fragile biped." You nod back in silent agreement. Tonight you are equals. The sounds of the barn settle into rhythm. The steady chewing, the soft shuffle of hooves, the occasional sigh of something too tired to care. It's strangely peaceful. Until you remember that peace, in medieval terms, is usually the prelude to a disaster. A rat scurries across your hand. You jump, curse softly, then realize the cows didn't even notice. Their calm is contagious. You pull your cloak tighter and close your eyes. The rain drums on the roof, 1,000 tiny knocks above your head. You imagine each drop as a question. What am I doing here? How long before the road becomes home? When does a journey stop being an escape and start being who you are? Outside, thunder rolls. One of the cows shifts, her weight pressing into the straw. You wonder what would happen if she rolled the wrong way, and decide not to dwell on it. The night stretches long. You half sleep, half dream. You see your village again, the hearth, the faces, the safety. But in the dream, everyone is wearing masks made of straw, their eyes hollow. You wake with a start. The barn is silent. Even the animals seem to be listening to something unseen. A few heartbeats later, the world exhales. The rhythm returns. The cows go back to chewing, and you laugh quietly at your own paranoia. Would you have lasted out here without fear to keep you company? Could you live like this, between faith and discomfort, forever? By dawn, the rain stops. Light filters through cracks in the walls, painting the straw in stripes of gold. You stretch, every joint protesting. The farmer appears with a loaf of bread, hard but edible. He hands it to you without a word. In the medieval vocabulary, that's affection. You thank him. He grunts. The cows ignore you. As you step out into the morning air, something shifts inside you. You realize that last night, for all its smell and strangeness, was the first time since leaving home that you felt safe. Not comfortable, not happy, but safe. And that's how travelers survive. Not on luck, not on strength, but on small mercies offered by strangers and cows. You look back at the barn one last time. The door swings slightly in the wind. A chicken struts out, proud and oblivious. You smile, shoulder your pack, and start walking again. The road glistens under the wet light, stretching on like a dare. Maybe tonight you'll find another barn. Or maybe you won't. But you've learned something precious. Warmth doesn't always come from fire. Sometimes it comes from being allowed to exist quietly in someone else's shelter. So tell me, if you were that farmer, would you open your door to a stranger in the rain? And if you were that traveler, would you have the courage to knock again, knowing how fragile mercy can be? The road has its moods. Sometimes it greets you with sunlight and birdsong. Other times it spits in your face and asks why you're still here. Tonight it's somewhere in between, calm but not friendly. The sky hangs low, heavy with clouds that can't decide whether to rain or brood. The air smells like earth and old decisions. You've walked since dawn. The barn and its cows are a memory now, fading behind the hills like a dream you didn't quite deserve. Your stomach has learned silence, a survival skill. And the ache in your legs has become an old friend, the kind that never leaves but doesn't need to talk much. You reach a clearing. It's quiet. No cottages, no barking dogs, no judgmental farmers guarding their bread. Just grass, open space, and a few trees hunched against the wind. You stop, take a breath, and accept what every poor traveler eventually must. Tonight, the sky is your roof. There's a strange dignity in that realization, or maybe it's just delirium. Either way, you set down your bundle and look for a patch of ground that seems least likely to kill you. You find one that's flat, mostly dry, and only slightly suspicious. You've slept in worse places. You spread your cloak, pull it tight around your shoulders, and lie down. The ground greets you with its usual generosity, all rocks, no mercy. The stars begin to appear, shy at first, then bolder, scattering themselves across the dark like 1,000 tiny candles burning for everyone who ever had nowhere else to go. You stare up at them. Each one feels alive, watching, whispering. Maybe they're the souls of other wanderers, people who walked these same roads centuries ago, now shining reminders that even the lost can leave light behind. Have you ever slept outside, truly outside, and felt the entire world breathing around you? Would you trust the stars to keep you safe if walls and doors were no longer an option? The air cools fast. You curl up tighter. Somewhere nearby, a night bird calls, soft, haunting, uncertain whether it's singing or warning. In the distance, something moves. Could be a fox. Could be worse. You try not to think about wolves or bandits or the occasional bored ghost. Instead, you focus on smaller fears, the rustle of grass beside your ear, the tickle of a beetle exploring your sleeve. In the hierarchy of medieval terrors, bugs are humble but relentless. The wind picks up. You pull your hood down, mumbling a half prayer, half complaint. The kind saints might forgive just because it's honest. You wonder how many travelers have done this before you, laid here under the same sky, hoping the night would pass quietly. Were they as scared as you? As stubborn? As stupidly optimistic? The moon rises, painting everything silver. The grass shivers. The air turns sharp like glass against your lungs. You watch your breath form little ghosts that vanish almost instantly. Each one feels like a thought escaping before you can finish it. And then the silence hits, the kind that isn't empty but alive. The road's whisper fades. The animals quiet. Even your heartbeat feels out of place. You realize how small you are, how enormous the night is. And for a fleeting moment, you feel peace. You think about home, about how safe it felt, how boring. You remember the fire crackling, the smell of soup, the warmth of other bodies nearby. Now, the only warmth is what your body can create, and even that feels borrowed. Would you go back if you could? Or has the road already changed you, made you too restless to ever belong anywhere again? A light flickers in the distance, maybe a farmhouse, maybe a spirit's trick. You consider walking toward it but decide against it. You've learned that not all lights lead to safety. Some just lure you deeper into the cold. So you stay. You let the night swallow your worries one by one. Hunger, loneliness, fear. They blur together until they become something quieter, endurance. And in that stillness, you begin to understand why some people keep traveling, even when there's nowhere better to go. Out here, you don't owe anyone anything. No debts, no rules, no expectations. Just you, your breath, and the indifferent sky. You drift toward sleep, the line between dream and waking as thin as the wind. In your half-conscious haze, the stars seem to shift, forming patterns that look almost like faces. You see your grandmother's eyes, the smile of someone you miss, and the faint shimmer of all the roads still waiting ahead. Maybe it's just exhaustion. Or maybe, for once, the world is speaking in a language only wanderers understand. By dawn, the chill has crept into your bones. The grass glitters with dew. You sit up slowly, your cloak stiff with cold, your fingers numb. But as the sun climbs, something strange happens. You laugh. Because you made it. You survived the night under the sky, and somehow that feels like victory. You stand, stretch, and whisper to the empty air. Still here. The road glows pale in the morning light, leading onward. Somewhere out there, maybe there's a warm meal, a friendly face, or at least a barn that doesn't smell like despair. But for now, it's enough just to walk. So tell me, traveler, would you trade your comfort for a single night beneath the stars? Would you risk the cold and the silence just to remember what it feels like to belong to the world itself? There's a moment on every journey when the road stops testing you and starts judging you. It's the moment you realize you've run out of barns, fields, and even courage, and you start to eye places you once swore you'd never sleep. Tonight, that place is holy ground, the churchyard, home of the faithful, the fallen, and for one night only, the hopelessly alive. You spot it just as the last light fades, a stone church rising out of the mist like something halfway between salvation and threat. Its small bell tower leans slightly, and the graveyard beside it glows pale in the moonlight. Crosses, mounds, and carved stones crowd together like a congregation frozen mid-prayer. You hesitate at the gate. Every story you've ever heard about ghosts and curses starts whispering in the back of your skull. But the air is still, and the grass looks soft enough to forgive you. Besides, the dead are famously quiet neighbors. You push the gate open. It creaks, of course, all church gates do. The smell hits next, damp stone, old earth, faint incense. Not unpleasant, just heavy with memory. You walk slowly between the graves, reading names smoothed by time. Some stones are so old they've forgotten who they belong to. Others are fresh, decorated with wilted flowers and prayers half washed away by rain. It's strange, standing here among them, you feel less alone than you did on the open road. Maybe that's the secret comfort of graveyards. They remind you that everyone eventually reaches a destination. You find a corner under a small tree, close enough to the church wall to block the wind. You drop your bundle, sit down, and breathe. The earth feels cold but not cruel. Above, the stars blink through the fog, cautious witnesses to your trespass. You whisper a quick apology to the residents. "I'll be quiet, you promise? I'm only borrowing your peace." Would you dare do the same? Lie among the graves for warmth, trusting that those beneath wouldn't mind? Or would the thought of sleeping beside eternity keep your eyes open till dawn? You pull your cloak tighter and listen. The night is full of small sounds, the sigh of wind through grass, the distant croak of frogs, the soft clatter of a loose shutter. Somewhere an owl calls, and the echo bounces off the stones like an old hymn. Your fear starts to settle. The longer you sit, the more natural it feels. Death here isn't menacing, it's orderly, almost polite. Each grave is a reminder that the chaos of the road has an end, that life, for all its filth and noise, eventually finds stillness. You look at the church door, locked of course, but through the cracks you see the faint flicker of candlelight. Maybe a priest praying for souls like yours. Maybe no one at all, just a flame that refuses to die out. For a moment you wish you could go inside. Not for warmth, but for company. Imagine the smell of wax and wood, the echo of footsteps in the dark, the comfort of believing someone up there knows your name. You cross yourself out of habit more than faith. Just one night, you whisper to the air. One quiet night. The wind shifts. A few leaves scatter across the ground. Somewhere nearby, a loose grave marker taps softly, once, twice, like a heartbeat. You tell yourself it's just the wind. It always is. Still, you move a little closer to the church wall. Funny how fear changes flavor. When you first left home, you feared hunger, then cold, then wolves. Now, what you fear most is nothing, the silence that comes when you finally run out of things to fight. Would you rather face danger or sit safely among the dead and feel your thoughts getting louder than the world? You close your eyes and breathe. The smell of grass mixes with candle smoke drifting through the cracks in the wall. Your body relaxes. The road slips away. For the first time in days, you don't feel hunted by your own thoughts. Perhaps the churchyard does have power after all. Not the grand, miracle-working kind, but the quiet sort that lets a lost soul rest without shame. You dream strange things. A procession of monks walking through the mist, their chants made of wind. Your mother lighting a candle and setting it adrift on water. The graves whispering stories about travelers who came before you, each convinced they were the first to discover that the world is both cruel and kind. When you wake, dawn is already rising behind the church. The mist glows gold. The grass sparkles with dew, and the crosses cast long, gentle shadows. You stretch slowly, half expecting the ground to complain. It doesn't. You whisper thanks, to the earth, to the dead, to whoever didn't mind your company. Before leaving, you pluck a small flower from the edge of a grave and set it at the church door. Not as payment, but as gratitude. It's the least you can offer for a night of peace borrowed from eternity. As you walk away, the church bell rings once, soft, distant, almost kind. You smile. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's blessing. Either way, the road feels lighter again. So tell me, would you find comfort among the quiet dead, or would the silence drive you mad? And if faith was nothing more than the courage to rest where you once feared, would you kneel, or keep walking? The further you walk, the quieter the world becomes. Villages thin out, the road narrows, and soon it's just you, the wind, and the sound of your own breath, steady, stubborn, alive. Then one afternoon, the bell finds you before the building does. A deep, slow toll that rolls over the hills like thunder softened by mercy. You follow it, drawn by the promise of something you haven't felt in days, belonging. The monastery appears at the crest of a hill, a fortress of stone and silence. Its walls rise like cliffs, ivy climbing them like memory refusing to fade. Inside, you imagine warmth, bread, voices that don't shout or curse. It looks like safety. And if you're honest, it looks like the kind of place where you might finally stop pretending you're strong. You knock. Once, twice. After a long pause, a small window in the gate creaks open. A pair of calm eyes studies you. You stammer out your story, the road, the hunger, the rain, the graves that didn't complain. The monk says nothing. He simply nods, disappears, and a moment later the gate opens just enough for you to enter. Inside, the world changes pace. The air smells of wood smoke and herbs. Bells toll faintly in the distance, and voices chant in a language older than your regrets. For the first time in weeks, no one asks what you want or what you're worth. You just are. One of the brothers leads you to a small refectory. He hands you a bowl of soup, hot, plain, miraculous. You eat slowly, as though afraid the moment might vanish if you finish too soon. The bread is rough, the broth thin, but it tastes like kindness. When was the last time something simple felt sacred to you? Would you savor it, or rush through it like all the other good things that never lasted long enough? Afterward, they give you a cot in a small chamber. The walls are bare stone, the blanket coarse. But to you it's luxury, a bed without mud, a roof that doesn't move. Outside your door, the world hums softly, the shuffle of sandals, the faint whisper of prayer. You listen. It's hypnotic. There's rhythm in their silence, meaning in their restraint. The monks speak little, but their quiet feels fuller than most people's noise. As you drift into sleep, you think of how strange this journey has been. From cows to graves to monks, from chaos to calm, from fear to something that almost feels like grace. The next morning you wake before dawn. Through the narrow window, the sky is still dark, but you hear chanting. Low voices woven together like threads of faith. You follow the sound to the chapel, where candles burn in long rows, their light trembling like 1,000 tiny souls. The brothers don't look at you. They don't need to. Their faces are serene, focused on something beyond the world you've been trudging through. You kneel in the back, unsure whether you're praying or just listening. And for a fleeting moment, you understand the peace that comes from surrender, not defeat, but acceptance. Would you give up your voice for that kind of silence? Would you trade freedom for stillness if it meant never feeling lost again? Later, you help in the garden. It's quiet work, pulling weeds, turning soil, carrying water. You notice how even labor here feels different. Not punishment, not survival, just rhythm. Life stripped of noise. One of the older monks smiles at you. His hands are cracked, his robe patched, but his eyes are clearer than the sky. He doesn't ask who you are or where you're going. He simply says, "The road doesn't always lead forward. Sometimes it circles back to your soul." You nod, pretending to understand, but the words cling to you long after he's gone. Maybe that's what this place is, a circle. A space where lost travelers find themselves reflected in silence. When evening comes, they invite you to eat again. The same soup, the same bread, the same calm. But something inside you has changed. You're not just hungry for food anymore, you're hungry for meaning, for quiet, for the kind of peace that doesn't vanish when you step outside the walls. As night falls, you walk along the cloister. Candles flicker through the arches, and the wind carries a hint of incense. You realize how long it's been since you heard laughter and how strangely you miss it. Silence can heal, but it can also swallow you if you stay too long. The next morning, you pack your things. The monk at the gate offers you a small loaf of bread and a blessing. No questions, no goodbyes, just that quiet smile again. You thank him and step back onto the road. The air feels louder now. The world feels heavier. But there's something in you that wasn't there before. A calm center, small but unshakable. You walk on, the sound of chanting fading behind you like a heartbeat you'll never forget. So tell me, would you have stayed in that silence forever if they had asked you to? Or does the road still call to you, noisy, cruel, and full of questions you're not done asking? By now, you've learned that the road doesn't care. It doesn't reward effort or punish mistakes. It just is endless, indifferent, and occasionally generous in ways you don't expect. After leaving the monastery's calm embrace, the silence follows you like a ghost that refuses to haunt, only to watch. The air smells different here, fresher, sharper, with a faint sweetness of wild herbs crushed underfoot. The sun dips low, and as dusk stretches its long fingers across the fields, you spot it, a small stone structure standing by the fork of the road. A roadside shrine. At first, it looks like nothing more than a weathered lump of stone half swallowed by ivy. But as you approach, the shape becomes clearer. An arch, a niche, and inside, the faint outline of a figure carved long ago. The Virgin, perhaps, or a saint no one remembers. Her face is worn smooth, her hands broken off, but the eyes still hold something, a kind of quiet endurance that mirrors your own. You kneel, partly out of habit, partly out of exhaustion. The stone is cool under your hands, and for a moment you just breathe. The last of the sun bleeds out behind the hills, leaving the world painted in blue and gold. It's beautiful. It's lonely. It's home for tonight. You glance around. No barns, no fields, no sound except the occasional whisper of grass swaying in the wind. This little shrine is all that stands between you and the open dark. Would you rest here at the edge of sanctity and wilderness? Could you trust a crumbling statue to watch over you while you sleep? You settle against the base of the shrine, drawing your cloak close. The stone gives off the day's leftover warmth, faint, but enough to trick your body into hope. You think about lighting a fire, but decide against it. The night is calm, and you've learned that darkness is safer when it doesn't know your name. From inside the shrine, you can just make out a small hollow filled with offerings. A few coins, a dried flower, the stub of a candle long melted down. You add your own contribution, a crust of bread, your last piece. Not because you expect a miracle, but because giving feels better than needing, even when you have nothing left. The wind sighs. Somewhere an owl hoots. The first stars blink awake. You lie back and look up at them, the sky now a vast cathedral with no walls, no priests, just light and silence. Do you ever wonder if faith is really about belief, or about needing something bigger than yourself to look back when you stare into the dark? A rustle in the bushes makes you tense. You grip your walking stick and hold your breath. A moment later, a small fox darts across the path, glancing at you once before disappearing into the grass. You exhale and laugh quietly. Even the fox is on pilgrimage, you whisper. The laughter fades quickly, replaced by that familiar ache, not hunger this time, but longing. You think of the monks chanting at dawn, the warmth of their candles. You think of the graveyard stillness, the barn's slow-breathing animals. Every place you've slept has given you something, a piece of the world's strange kindness stitched into your own. Maybe the road isn't just distance. Maybe it's an education in mercy. Your eyelids grow heavy. The stars blur into one another, smearing like spilled light. The statue above you seems to lean closer, her faceless gaze softening. In the space between waking and sleep, you almost imagine her whispering, not in words but in a feeling. Keep walking. Keep breathing. The road is long, but you are longer. Sometime during the night, it begins to rain. Not a storm, just a steady drizzle that patters against the stone. You curl tighter beneath your cloak, pressing against the shrine for shelter. The rain drips from the Virgin's veil, falling like a blessing you didn't ask for but needed anyway. By dawn, the rain stops. The world smells clean again, scrubbed raw by the night. The shrine glistens in the early light, water beating along the cracks like tears. You stand, stretch, and bow your head once before leaving. You don't know who built it, or when, or if the saint ever listened. But you know this: for one night, the world gave you a roof of stars and a wall of faith, and it was enough. You step back onto the road, your feet still sore, your heart still stubborn. The morning fog clings to the ground like the breath of sleeping angels. And somewhere ahead, the next village waits, full of strangers, full of stories, full of the same human noise you thought you'd left behind. You smile. You're ready for it. So tell me, traveler, if the road offered you nothing but silence and sky, would you still follow it? And if the divine spoke not through miracles, but through moments like this, rain on stone, warmth and hunger, would you know how to listen? After days of rain, prayer, and whispered company with statues, you start craving something louder, something human. And then, like a miracle wrapped in bad decisions, you see it. A flicker of orange in the dusk, smoke curling from a crooked chimney, laughter leaking through a warped wooden door. A tavern. You stop, half in disbelief. You hadn't expected one this far from anything resembling civilization. The sign swinging above the door shows a crudely painted boar and the words, "The Sleepy Sow," barely legible under the grime. But you don't care. To your tired eyes, it's a cathedral of warmth. You push open the door and step into chaos. Heat slams into you first. Fire roaring in a stone hearth, bodies packed shoulder to shoulder, air thick with smoke, sweat, and something that might once have been stew. Laughter collides with shouting. Tankards slam, boots stomp. A man in the corner sings off-key, his song an unintentional confession. You stand there a moment, blinking, dazed. It's too bright, too loud, too alive. But then the smell of baked bread and roasting meat hits you, and suddenly heaven seems overrated. Would you go in, or stand outside, afraid of being seen, afraid of wanting too much warmth? The innkeeper spots you immediately. She's a large woman with arms like church pillars and a look that could curdle milk. "Coin?" she asks, not unkindly but not gently either. You pat your pouch, feeling the familiar disappointment of emptiness. Her eyebrow arches. "Then you'll drink water and stay out of the way." It's not exactly hospitality, but it's more mercy than you've earned. You find a place near the wall, close enough to the fire to feel human again, far enough not to draw attention. The flames crackle, painting the faces around you in gold and shadow. Each one tells a story: a farmer nursing his blisters, a soldier bragging about a war he probably didn't fight, a merchant counting coins like prayers. You sip the water. It tastes faintly of smoke and metal. You pretend it's wine. Across the room, two men argue over dice. Their voices rise, their gestures grow wild, and for a heartbeat, it feels like the whole world might burst. Then someone starts playing a lute, thin and twangy, and the tension melts back into laughter. This is what the road has been missing: noise. Ugly, beautiful, ordinary noise, proof that life still stumbles on, drunk and imperfect. Would you rather have peace or proof of life? Would you trade silence for laughter, even if it came with the smell of spilled ale and regret? A serving boy passes by and drops a heel of bread onto your table. He doesn't look at you, just moves on. You tear it apart slowly, savoring every crumb as though it were a feast. Outside, the wind howls. Inside, everything feels distant from suffering. Even the tired look in the innkeeper's eyes has a kind of resilience in it, the strength of someone who's seen every sort of hunger and learned how to feed what she can and ignore what she can't. Hours blur. The room grows hotter, louder. Someone tells a story about a ghost in the next village, someone else about a tax collector who vanished in a well. Each tale ends in laughter or song because in this world, everything either kills you or becomes a joke eventually. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the fire's warmth soak into your bones. For the first time in days, you feel like part of something. Not a traveler or a sinner, just another soul trying to forget. And maybe that's what taverns are for: forgiveness without confession. The night deepens. One by one, the drunkards slump into corners, their snores merging into a strange symphony. You lay your head against the wall and drift halfway between dream and noise. In your half-sleep, the lute becomes a lullaby, the fire a heartbeat, the murmurs of strangers the sound of belonging. You wake when the door creaks open and cold air spills in. A traveler enters, younger, cleaner, eyes still bright with hope. He glances around, spots you, and nods the way travelers do, an unspoken greeting between survivors. You nod back, and for a moment you see yourself, days ago, weeks ago, it's hard to tell. The road changes people quietly. You close your eyes again, smiling faintly. Somewhere behind you, the innkeeper snuffs the last candle. Darkness folds the room in half, leaving only the glow of embers. You think of how strange comfort is, found in barns, graves, and now the bottom of an ale-scented room. Maybe warmth isn't holy. Maybe it's just rare. When morning comes, you slip out before anyone wakes. The air outside bites your face, but it smells clean. Honest. The tavern door shuts behind you with a sigh, as though the world is reminding you not to get too comfortable. You start walking again, your head a little clearer, your heart a little heavier. Behind you, laughter stirs as the first voices of the new day rise. Ahead, the road waits, muddy, indifferent, infinite. So tell me, wanderer, when the world offered you one night of warmth, did you take it without guilt? And when the morning came, did you leave grateful, or just hungry for more? By now, you've learned the rhythm of the road, the rise and fall of hope like breath. Every day begins with a question: where will I sleep? And every night ends with an answer that's equal parts luck, faith, and desperation. Tonight, that answer lies behind a stranger's door. You find the cottage near twilight, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. The fields around it are dark, wet, full of whispering insects. Your feet ache, your throat burns, and your stomach has learned the language of emptiness. You hesitate at the gate. The air smells of rain and bread, cruelly inviting. Would you knock? Would you risk the unknown warmth of another person's mercy? You raise your hand and tap gently on the door. A dog barks from inside, deep, warning, honest. A man's voice follows. Who's there? Just a traveler, you say. No coin, only tired bones. Silence. Then the door creaks open. A broad figure stands in the light, face shadowed by the glow of the hearth. He studies you for a moment that feels longer than the journey itself. Finally, he nods toward the fire. You can sit. Don't touch anything that breathes. It's not exactly an invitation, but you step inside anyway. The warmth hits like forgiveness. A woman moves quietly near the hearth, stirring a pot. She glances at you, curious, not cruel. Two children peek from behind her skirt, whispering questions their parents won't answer aloud. You take a place near the fire, careful not to seem too grateful. In this world, humility is currency. Too much need looks dangerous. The man hands you a chunk of bread. Eat slow, he warns. You'll make yourself sick. You nod, though you want nothing more than to devour it whole. The bread is coarse and still warm, the kind of warmth that feels alive. Each bite tastes like memory, like every time you thought kindness had vanished from the world and it proved you wrong. The family eats in silence. Only the fire speaks, a low, steady crackle that fills the gaps where words might go. Now and then the man looks at you, not unkindly, but as if trying to decide whether your hunger ends at food. You wonder what he sees, a pilgrim, a beggar, or something in between. Do you ever think about how easily strangers become mirrors, reflecting the parts of you that you're too tired to hide? After supper, the woman lays a folded blanket near the hearth. You can sleep there, she says softly. Mind the cat. She bites. The man grunts in agreement but doesn't smile. Trust in this century is not given. It's lent with interest. The children, half asleep, whisper to each other. Is he a thief? One asks. No, the other says after a pause. He's just sad. You want to tell them that sadness is not a crime, but you're too tired. So you lie down, the warmth of the fire stroking your face, the scent of ash and bread and life filling the small room. Outside, the wind moves through the fields like an old song. You close your eyes and wonder how many travelers have slept like this, between fear and gratitude, between exile and belonging. In your dreams, the cottage becomes every home you've ever lost. The faces blur, the walls shift, but the feeling stays, that fragile comfort born from another's kindness. Would you let a stranger sleep by your fire if they knocked at your door tonight? Would you see a danger, or a reflection of yourself, one twist of fate away from begging? You wake before dawn. The fire has died down to glowing coals. The woman is already up, kneading dough. The smell of yeast and smoke hangs in the air. She offers you a small loaf, still raw, to bake later. Keep moving, she says. The rain's coming back. You thank her, your voice rough with sleep. The man nods once, silent again. But as you step outside, he says something that makes you stop. Not all doors open twice. Remember that. You nod, not sure whether it's warning or wisdom. The dog watches as you leave, tail still, eyes alert, guarding everything that remains behind. The road greets you coldly as if jealous of the warmth you borrowed. But your hands still smell faintly of bread, and your heart, though heavy, feels lighter than when you arrived. That's the strange thing about kindness. It never fills you, but it never leaves you empty either. It just keeps echoing long after the fire's gone out. You glance back once. The cottage is already shrinking into the mist, smoke curling into nothing. Somewhere a rooster calls. The day begins again, brutally ordinary, brutally beautiful. And you think, maybe survival isn't about strength or faith or luck. Maybe it's about this, the brief moments when strangers remember how to be human. So tell me, if the road brought someone to your door tonight, tired and hollow-eyed, would you open it? And if you did, would you see it as charity, or as a reminder that someday someone might need to open theirs for you? By the time you reach the next town, your bread is gone, your cloak is stiff with dust, and your body hums with the kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to cure. The sun has already slipped behind the rooftops, painting the sky the color of bruised fruit. You pass through the gates just as the marketplace is closing. Vendors shout the day's last bargains. Children chase each other between carts. The smell of roasted onions, sweat, and smoke hangs thick in the air. Coins clink, laughter fades, and one by one the stalls begin to shudder. To most, it's the end of another day. To you, it's the beginning of a long night. The square empties quickly. Lanterns dim. A lone dog noses through scraps beneath a butcher's bench. You stand there, clutching your pack, pretending to have somewhere to go. But you don't. Would you admit that? Would you stand in a crowd and realize you have no destination, only the stubbornness to keep walking? The wind shifts. The voices fade. What remains is silence, broken only by the slow creak of wooden stalls settling into stillness. You find a corner where two market booths meet, sheltered from the wind. It smells faintly of cabbage and old fish, but compared to the open road, it might as well be perfume. You crouch down, rearranging a few empty sacks into something resembling a bed. The wood beneath you is cold, the kind of cold that climbs rather than settles. But you're used to that by now. You pull your cloak tighter and watch the town's lights flicker out one by one. Somewhere nearby, a door slams and a voice curses the weather. Then, nothing. Just the soft scurry of rats, the whisper of the night watchman's footsteps, and the gentle rattle of a sign swaying in the wind. The market, once a storm of color and sound, is now a skeleton. Empty tables, forgotten baskets, a toppled barrel spilling a few shriveled apples. You pick one up. It's small, wrinkled, but still sweet. It's strange, isn't it, how even decay can taste like grace when you've been hungry long enough. You lean back and stare at the dark outline of the church tower beyond the rooftops. You think of all the hands that touched these stalls today. Merchants, mothers, children with sticky fingers. The market is a living thing, but at night it sleeps too. And you, the uninvited guest, become part of its dream. Would you find peace in that stillness, knowing you're surrounded by the echoes of trade and laughter that don't belong to you? Or would the emptiness make you feel more invisible than ever? A faint sound interrupts your thoughts. Footsteps, soft and quick. You freeze. A figure slips between the stalls. A girl, young, barefoot, carrying a basket half filled with what looks like bread crusts. She notices you instantly. You both hold still, two ghosts caught in the act of surviving. After a heartbeat, she steps closer and drops a crust near your feet. Too old for the buyers, she whispers. Too good to waste. You nod your thanks, but before you can say another word, she's gone, vanished back into the labyrinth of alleys, her basket bobbing like a small moon in the dark. You chew the crust slowly, each bite heavy with the quiet kindness of strangers who understand hunger without words. The night deepens. Rain begins, not a storm, just a thin drizzle, steady and rhythmic. You pull the empty sacks tighter around you. The wood creaks above your head. The smell of wet earth and fruit rises from the cobblestones. You close your eyes and listen to the rain drumming softly on the stalls. It sounds almost like applause, gentle, forgiving, as if the world itself were clapping for you for still being here. You dream of the marketplace alive again, voices bright, banners fluttering, spices thick in the air. But this time in the dream, no one turns you away. You stand at a stall selling nothing, buying nothing, simply existing, and somehow that's enough. When dawn comes, the world wakes quickly. Boots stomp, wheels squeak, merchants shout. You rise before they notice you, brushing off bits of hay and pride. The same stalls that sheltered you last night will soon burst with life again. Color, trade, noise. No one will know you were ever there. And maybe that's the quiet miracle of survival, to leave no trace but to keep walking anyway. You slip down a side street just as the first bell rings for morning prayer. The air smells of baking bread again, cruelly hopeful. The market hums behind you, reborn, loud, alive, as if it never slept at all. So tell me, would you rather be part of the world's noise, seen and forgotten each day, or live in its silence, unseen but free to listen to the echoes? By now you've slept in barns, fields, graves, and places that barely count as shelter. You've learned that comfort in this world is rarely free, and sometimes not even kind. But then you hear a word whispered among travelers, a promise that sounds almost like salvation. Auspicium, the pilgrim's house. A place built for those who wander not for work or escape, but for God. Or so they say. You spot it at sunset, standing at the edge of the next town, stone walls, a wooden cross above the door, smoke curling gently from the chimney. You approach cautiously, your heart flickering between hope and disbelief. A monk at the gate greets you with a nod that's neither warm nor cold. You've walked far? Far enough, you answer. He studies your dust-covered boots, the crusted edges of your cloak, the dull ache in your eyes. Then, wordlessly, he gestures you inside. The first thing you notice is the smell. Not incense, not rot, but soup. Thin, vegetable, honest soup. A dozen others sit at long wooden tables, their faces a collage of fatigue and faith. Some still clutch pilgrims' badges pinned to their cloaks, tiny metal tokens shaped like shells or saints, proof that their suffering has purpose. You have no badge. You have only blisters. Would you lie to belong here? Would you pretend faith if it meant one night of safety? The monk ladles you a bowl without question. You eat slowly, the broth warm enough to remind your stomach what kindness feels like. It tastes faintly of cabbage and penance. No one speaks. Conversation, it seems, isn't part of the prayer. Later, another brother leads you to the sleeping hall, a long, low room lined with straw mattresses. Each bed is separated by just enough space to pretend privacy. The air smells of sweat, wool, and the damp holiness of too many tired bodies breathing the same dream. You sit on your bed, staring at the low beams above. A candle flickers somewhere near the door, throwing shadows that look like ghosts of those who didn't finish their pilgrimage. You wonder how many of them came here seeking absolution, and how many just wanted a dry place to sleep. What's the difference, really, between faith and desperation? A monk enters quietly, carrying a small crucifix. He blesses each traveler in turn, murmuring words that hover between Latin and mercy. When he reaches you, he hesitates. You brace yourself for judgment. But he only says softly, "All roads lead somewhere, even the ones that don't look holy." Then he moves on. You lie down, listening to the creak of bodies shifting in the dark, the distant drip of water from the roof, the rhythmic whisper of prayer from someone who hasn't stopped walking even in their dreams. Outside, rain begins again. It patters on the tiles, steady, forgiving. You pull the thin blanket over your shoulders and close your eyes. In your half-sleep, you imagine all the roads converging, the ones that led here from France, Spain, Germany, England. Thousands of feet pounding the same mud, thousands of prayers rising from the same hunger. It's strange comfort knowing your suffering isn't unique. Would that make you feel small or understood? You wake before dawn, roused by bells and cold air. The monks are already moving, lighting candles, stirring pots. A few pilgrims kneel in the chapel, whispering gratitude for surviving the night. You join them not because you believe, but because gratitude feels like the least expensive way to pay for mercy. The monk who greeted you at the gate appears again. He presses something into your hand, a small lead badge shaped like a scallop shell. "Proof," he says, "that you were welcomed." You look down at it, dull, heavy, beautiful in its simplicity. For a moment, it feels like absolution, or maybe just permission to keep going. You thank him, bowing awkwardly. He doesn't reply, just nods once, the way the road itself does when you step back onto it, patient, eternal, slightly amused. As you walk away, you pin the badge to your cloak. The morning sun catches it, flashing briefly like a coin of light. You smile faintly. Maybe faith doesn't start in churches or monasteries. Maybe it starts in exhaustion, in the simple act of asking for shelter and being told, yes. So tell me, would you have the courage to knock on the door of faith, even if you weren't sure what you believed? And if someone opened it for you, would you walk inside, or keep pretending you didn't need saving? By the time the next sunset arrives, the land has changed again. The fields widen, the air smells faintly of smoke and roses, and the path turns from mud to cobble, uneven but proud. And there, rising at the edge of the valley, stands the manor. Not a castle exactly. Not a village either. A vast house of stone, surrounded by orchards and stables, the kind of place that looks like it belongs to someone who's never been cold a day in their life. The walls glow orange in the dying light, and the windows glitter like coins. You stop at a distance, uncertain. It's beautiful, yes, but in the same way fire is beautiful. You know what happens if you get too close. Still, the road has given you little choice before. The wind is rising, the fields are slick with rain, and the night smells of frost. Would you dare to sleep near wealth, knowing that comfort can be crueler than hunger? You approach slowly, sticking to the shadows of the wall. Dogs bark in the distance, deep, noble barks that sound well-fed and self-important. You spot the stables first, warm light spilling through the slats, the soft shuffle of hooves. It's as close to heaven as you'll get tonight. You slip inside quietly, your breath a cloud in the chill air. The smell of hay and horse fills the space, sharp, alive. A few animals stir, but none seem to mind you. You find an empty corner near a pile of straw and sink down, your bones creaking louder than the floorboards. For a moment, you simply sit and breathe. The warmth of the horses seeps into you, slow and steady. Their calm, rhythmic breathing feels like a lullaby for the damned. It's strange, isn't it, how animals never ask who you are, what you've done, or what you believe. They just accept your presence the way the earth accepts rain. Outside, the manor glows brighter. You hear music, faint, elegant, distant. A lute maybe, or a harp. Voices drift through the open window. Laughter, toasts, the clink of silver. You picture them, nobles in silk, hands soft as secrets, faces lit by firelight. They dance while you hide among their horses. They drink wine older than your memories, and for a brief, terrible moment you envy them. Not their wealth, their ignorance. Would you trade everything you've learned on the road for one night of not knowing how fragile comfort really is? You close your eyes and imagine walking through that door just once. Sitting by their fire, feeling silk against your skin, pretending the world was built to hold you, not spit you out. But the thought fades quickly. You've lived too long among honest things, mud, bread, pain, to ever belong in a room where truth is powdered and perfumed. A sudden shout breaks your thoughts. You freeze. Voices, guards. Someone's coming. You press yourself against the wall, heart hammering. Two men enter carrying lanterns. Their boots crunch against the straw. They talk in low voices about taxes, about wine, about how the Lord's youngest son nearly burned down the kitchen again. You stay still. Invisible. Just another shadow among many. One of them pauses near you, squinting into the dark. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then he shrugs and turns away. Probably just a rat, he mutters. You almost laugh. He's not wrong. When they leave, you exhale slowly, your hands trembling. The horses snort softly, unimpressed by your brush with disaster. You lie back in the straw, staring at the ceiling beams. Through a crack, you can see a sliver of the night sky, stars caught between stone and silence. The music from the manor fades as the fire dies down. You hear the faint echo of laughter, the closing of doors, the world of luxury retreating into its warm cocoon. And here you are, outside, awake, alive. You think about walls, how they don't just keep danger out. They keep stories in. How many peasants like you have slept beneath these same walls, listening to the same laughter, wondering what it's like to be safe? And how many nobles behind those walls have ever wondered what it's like to be cold? Probably none. But the horses shift closer in their sleep, their warmth wrapping around you like an apology the world forgot to make. You smile despite yourself. For now, that's enough. Morning comes slow, pale, and cruel. You rise before anyone sees you, brushing straw from your clothes. As you step outside, the manor glows soft in the dawn, serene, untouchable. You look up once, just once, and whisper a strange kind of prayer. May they never know how lucky they are. Then you turn back to the road, the frost crunching beneath your feet. The walls shrink behind you, but the feeling lingers, that invisible border between those who sleep warm and those who dream cold. So tell me, if you stood at the gates of comfort, forbidden to enter, would you curse it? Or would you thank it for reminding you what warmth truly means? The road bends again as it always does, never straight, never kind. The manor fades into mist behind you, replaced by empty fields and leaning trees that whisper secrets to the wind. You walk until your feet forget they exist, until hunger becomes background noise. And then, through the thinning fog, you see it, a house, or what's left of one. Half its roof has caved in, the windows gape like broken teeth, and ivy has swallowed what used to be a doorway, a ruin long abandoned. But to you it looks like promise. The light is fading fast, and the sky carries the color of steel before snow. You stand before the ruin and listen. Nothing, no voices, no dogs, no human noise. Only the slow breath of the wind moving through the empty frame of what was once a home. Would you enter not knowing what sleeps inside, ghosts, rats, or your own memories? You push through the ivy, the leaves crackling like whispers of permission. Inside, the air is cool and damp. The floor creaks, but it holds. The scent of old wood and rain fills your lungs, and you realize this place hasn't heard a voice in years. You strike a match, just one. Its light dances across the walls, revealing scraps of faded color beneath the grime. Paint, maybe, or the ghost of a tapestry. A child's carved toy lies half buried in dust. A chair sits collapsed in the corner. It's as if time left in a hurry and forgot to close the door. You move carefully, your footsteps loud in the silence. There's something holy about ruins, not because they're sacred, but because they've stopped pretending. They don't try to be perfect anymore. They just are. You find a place near what used to be a hearth. The stones are blackened, cracked, but dry. You sit, wrap your cloak tighter, and let the shadows settle around you. The wind hums through the gaps in the roof, soft and low, like a voice trying to remember a song. And you can almost hear it. Laughter, the echo of pots clanging, the rustle of skirts, the rhythm of life that once filled these walls. Who were they, the people who built this place? A farmer and his wife, maybe. Children with muddy feet and loud dreams. You imagine them eating bread by the fire, praying for rain, arguing about nothing, the kind of happiness too ordinary for history to remember. And now you're sitting in their absence, the final guest at a feast that ended centuries ago. Would that thought comfort you, or crush you? The night grows colder. You pull some dry straw into a pile, striking another match to light a small fire. The flame catches, fragile and eager, throwing trembling light against the ruined walls. For a moment, the house seems alive again. Your shadow joins the others that once lived here, swaying against stone like a long-forgotten dance. You take a sip from your flask. Just water, but in this light, it might as well be wine. You raise it slightly toward the ghosts. To survival, you whisper. Yours, mine, whoever's still listening. The fire crackles in response. Outside, the wind shifts direction, carrying the smell of rain. You can feel it coming. The storm, the cold, the reminder that comfort never lasts long. You lie down near the hearth, the warmth of the flames licking your face. The sound of the wind through broken beams becomes your lullaby. And in the drifting haze between waking and sleep, you see them. Not as phantoms, but as memory, a family gathered around the same fire centuries ago. The mother singing softly. The father mending something by candlelight. Children curled up together, dreaming of spring. You blink and they're gone. Only the ruin remains, but the feeling stays heavy and strange. Do you believe in ghosts, traveler? Or do you think it's just the world remembering itself for a moment through us? By dawn, the fire is ash. The air smells of damp earth and the faint sweetness of decay. You stand, stretch, and look once more around the room. Light filters through the cracks, painting dust in gold. You take one last breath, deep, reverent. Then you whisper, "Thank you," to no one and everyone, and step back into the cold. The ruin behind you stands silent, unchanged, but not unacknowledged. And maybe that's all any of us need, to be seen even after we're gone. The road ahead glitters faintly with frost. You pull your cloak close and walk on, leaving footprints that will vanish before noon. So tell me, if you found a ruin and felt the echo of lives long vanished, would you mourn them, or envy them for being finished? And when your own walls one day crumble, what fragments of you will the wind still whisper through? Morning finds you walking along a narrow river road, its stones slick with mist. The world feels suspended, the air too still, the light too gray to belong to any real hour. And then, through the fog, a shape appears, arches of stone rising proud above the water. A bridge. You approach slowly. From a distance, it looks beautiful, ancient, sturdy, a spine of civilization stretching across the river's pulse. But as you draw near, beauty gives way to truth. The bridge is alive, with people. A dozen, maybe more, huddled along its sides. Blankets patched from rags, bowls placed carefully in front of them, faces turned toward the endless flow of travelers and merchants passing by. The air hums with coughs, murmurs, and the soft clang of coins dropped in pity. You stop at the foot of the bridge, uncertain. For days you've been the one asking for kindness. Now you stand among those who've given up even the illusion of moving on. Would you cross? Or would you stop and sit beside them, admitting that maybe the road has been leading here all along? The first beggar spots you, a woman old enough to remember better times, her eyes sharp as flint beneath a frayed hood. You walk light, she says. Either poor or proud. Which is it? You shrug. Both, maybe. She chuckles. That's the right answer. You offer her the last crust of bread you've been saving. She takes it, nods once, and breaks it in half, sharing it with the man beside her without a word. For a while you just stand there watching. Merchants hurry past with carts full of goods. Bolts of cloth, baskets of fruit, cages of geese that hiss and flutter. They keep their eyes fixed straight ahead, pretending not to see the world collapsing on either side of them. A young boy, barefoot and bright-eyed, calls out to a passing noble. God bless you, my lord. The man tosses a copper without looking back. The boy catches it midair and grins as though it were gold. You can't decide which of them deserves more pity, the boy who must beg or the man who must ignore him to feel strong. A minstrel sits near the center of the bridge, strumming a lute missing 2 strings. His voice is thin but stubborn, carrying a song about love, loss, and saints who probably never existed. He nods as you pass as if to say, we're all performing for bread here, one way or another. You pause beside him, listening. The melody feels old, older than the stones beneath your feet, maybe older than sorrow itself. Play it again, you say softly. He smiles, showing 2 few teeth. You got coin? You shake your head. Then listen twice, he says, and plays anyway. The beggars laugh, not kindly but knowingly. It's a good sound, rough and real. Feels like the world exhaling. Do you think laughter born from hunger is stronger or weaker than joy? As the song fades, you look over the bridge's edge. The river below moves slow and wide, reflecting the sky like a sheet of tarnished silver. In its depths, you see the faint shimmer of fish, and for a moment you envy them. No walls, no taxes, no hunger, no pride. Just movement. But then the wind rises, cold and sharp. The boy with the coin shivers. The old woman pulls her blanket tighter. The minstrel coughs, the sound echoing like the crack of an old bell. You realize something, they aren't trapped here. They've simply stopped pretending there's somewhere else to go. You reach into your cloak and pull out the small lead badge the monk gave you, the scallop shell of the pilgrim's house. It's the only thing of value you own. You set it down beside the old woman's bowl. She looks up, startled. That's faith, isn't it? You nod. Was. Now it's gratitude. She studies you for a long moment before whispering, then may your road never end. You smile. That's what I'm afraid of. You cross the rest of the bridge slowly, each step echoing against the stone. Behind you, the noise resumes, laughter, coughs, the soft rhythm of survival. At the far side, a merchant glances at you, eyes flicking toward your empty hands. You one of them? He asks, half sneer, half curiosity. Not yet, you say and keep walking. The road ahead stretches quiet and long. You glance back once more. The bridge glows faintly in the sun, a spine of human fragility holding steady against time and tide. And in that moment you realize something strange. They aren't the forgotten ones. They're the witnesses, the silent audience to everyone still pretending they're safe. So tell me, if the world gave you the choice between walking endlessly or sitting still forever, which would you choose? And when your hunger became louder than your pride, whose bridge would you sleep on? The sky has been warning you all day. It began as a whisper, a low hum along the horizon, clouds gathering like gossip. Now, as twilight fades, that whisper has become a growl. The wind sharpens, slicing through your cloak. The scent of metal and rain fills your lungs. You look up and see it, a watchtower black against the bruised sky. Abandoned, perhaps, or merely forgotten. It stands on a small rise beside the road, its stone walls cracked and veined with moss. It doesn't look safe, but then again, nothing on this road ever has. Would you run toward the lightning for shelter, or stand in the open and let the storm decide your fate? The first drops fall heavy, deliberate, like coins dropped from a cruel hand. You climb the slope, boots sliding on mud, your breath turning to mist. By the time you reach the tower's base, the rain has become a sheet of silver. The door hangs crooked, half-rotted. You push it open, and the wind howls in protest, as though the building itself remembers what it was built to keep out. Inside, darkness waits, thick, still, ancient. You light your last stub of candle. Its weak flame quivers, revealing a spiral staircase winding upward into shadow. Water drips from the ceiling. The air smells of rust and old wars. You climb. Each step groans under your weight. The candlelight dances on the walls, catching glimpses of carvings, marks left by long-dead guards. A name, a prayer, a tally of days. You trace one with your fingers. The stone feels cold, patient. When you reach the top, you find a narrow room open to the storm. Lightning flashes, turning the world white for an instant. Through the open arch, you can see the road twisting away, a silver thread in the dark, leading nowhere you can name. You set your candle near the wall, its light trembling against the wind. The roof above has half collapsed, but part of it holds. You curl up beneath it, clutching your cloak tight. The storm erupts. Thunder shatters the silence like judgment. Rain lashes the stones, pouring through the cracks, dripping into your hair, your mouth, your soul. You press your back against the wall and breathe through the fear. It's strange, after all the nights you've slept under stars, the sound of rain should be comforting. But not tonight. Tonight, it feels like the world is reminding you just how small you are. Would you pray here in the tower as lightning tears the sky apart? And if you did, who would you pray to, the God above or the storm itself? The flashes come faster now, illuminating the world in fragments. The trees bowing like penitents, the fields gleaming like wet glass. For a moment, the river in the distance glows white, a vein of living light. Then darkness swallows everything again. The tower moans under the wind's weight. The candle dies. You sit in the dark, heartbeat loud as thunder. And in that dark, you think of all the places you found refuge. Barns, ruins, graves, shrines, taverns. Each one has offered shelter, but never safety. Maybe that's the truth of it, that safety was never meant for people who keep walking. The next flash lights the room again, and something catches your eye. A small, rusted sword hanging from a beam. It's ceremonial, blunt from age, useless now. You take it anyway. Not as a weapon, but as a memory, proof that someone once stood watch here, believing the world was worth protecting. The thunder rolls again, deep and endless. You close your eyes and listen. For a moment, you think you hear something in the storm. A rhythm hidden in the chaos. A voice not of words but of pulse. It says nothing you can understand, yet somehow it feels like an answer to everything you've never dared to ask. When dawn comes, the storm is gone. The world is washed clean, raw and shining. The tower drips quietly, exhausted. You step outside. The grass is wet, the air sharp. In the pale light, the road stretches before you, glistening as if newly made. You look back at the tower, solitary, steadfast, wounded but still standing. You understand it now. The tower wasn't built to stop storms. It was built to survive them. You tighten your cloak and start walking again, the useless sword clattering softly at your side. Each step splashes through puddles that reflect the first blush of morning. And for the first time in days, you smile. So tell me, when the storm comes for you, will you run, hide, or stand tall enough to be struck? And if it leaves you standing, will you call that survival or a miracle? After days of rain and silence, the sound hits you before the sight. Music, bright, fast, reckless, spilling down the valley like sunlight through cracks. Drums, flutes, laughter, bells. The road bends and there it is, a town dressed in color. Banners hang from windows. Ribbons twist in the wind. Every street teems with movement, dancers, jugglers, merchants shouting over the music. Even the air smells alive. Roasted nuts, honeyed wine, crushed flowers beneath too many feet. For a moment you just stand there dazed. After weeks of hunger and storms, the noise feels unreal, almost cruel. And then you notice it, everyone's wearing a mask. Not just the performers, not just the children, everyone. Wood, leather, cloth, painted, feathered, faces of animals, angels, saints, monsters. 1,000 versions of humanity hiding behind 1,000 disguises. You take a step forward and someone immediately presses a mask into your hands. Festival of renewal, a woman shouts over the music. No face, no entry. Her mask is painted gold, her smile hidden but her eyes sharp as glass. You hesitate. Then you tie it on. Would you join a world that demands you hide to belong? Would you rather be unseen or uninvited? Once masked, you're invisible. You move among them like one drop in a river of joy. No one stares, no one questions. You could be anyone. The freedom feels strange, like taking a deep breath after forgetting how. You wander the market. Stalls overflow with ribbons and candied fruit. A jester in red tosses knives into the air, each one flashing like a thought too dangerous to keep. Children chase each other in painted wolf masks, growling between bursts of laughter. The world looks mad, and maybe that's the point. You stop beside a fountain where people toss coins into the water. Each coin hits with a soft chime, sinking beneath reflections of grinning faces. You reach into your pouch. It's empty as always. But then again, what could you wish for that the road hasn't already taken? A masked man beside you laughs softly. "Careful," he says. "The water remembers every wish. That's how it drowns you later." You glance at him. His mask is white, featureless, the kind that reveals nothing. "Who are you?" you ask. He tilts his head. "Today? No one. Isn't that the luxury?" He disappears into the crowd before you can answer. Would you feel freer without a name, or lost without a face? You drift with the music. The rhythm infects you, the drums beating like a second heart. The festival feels endless, day bleeding into dusk, laughter growing louder as the sun fades. Torches light the square. Dancers whirl, cloaks flaring, shadows stretching like smoke. You catch glimpses of what might be truth beneath the masks. A child's tear wiped away before anyone notices. A merchant's tired eyes behind his painted grin. A woman laughing too hard, too long, as if drowning in her joy. The air grows heavy with perfume, sweat, and something darker, desperation disguised as celebration. You wonder if the masks hide faces or if the faces hide something deeper still. As night deepens, the music slows. People gather in the center square where a great bonfire has been built. A man in a golden mask steps forward. The master of renewal, they call him. He raises a torch and shouts, "Tonight we burn the year that was and wake as new souls." The crowd roars. The fire ignites, rising fast, painting the masks in shades of gold and crimson. People throw offerings into the flames, flowers, coins, pieces of old clothing. You stand among them, holding nothing. But the crowd presses closer. A hand shoves your shoulder. "Throw something," a voice commands. "Let the fire take your past." You reach into your cloak and feel the hilt of the rusted sword you took from the watchtower. For a moment, you hesitate. It's useless, heavy, but it's the only relic of your long walk. Then you toss it in. The flames swallow it whole, sparks flying upward like freed prayers. And in that moment, you feel lighter and lonelier. Would you give up your last belonging if it meant forgetting who you were? And if you did, what would be left of you? The music swells again, wild and feverish. Masks spin, laughter shatters into the night. The fire burns brighter, taller, until it seems the stars themselves bow to it. You step back, your face hot from the heat. The crowd dances, but you feel still, a single unmoving figure in a sea of motion. You take off your mask. No one notices. The air touches your skin like truth returning. You smile, faintly, unseen. By dawn, the fire is ash. The town lies quiet, masks scattered in the mud like fallen leaves. You leave before anyone wakes, the scent of smoke still clinging to your hair. Behind you, the wind stirs one of the masks. It rolls toward the road, hollow, waiting. So tell me, if every face you met were borrowed, how would you recognize honesty? And if the world asked you to dance among lies for one night, would you join in or walk away into silence? The road turns pale again after the carnival burns itself to ash. No music now, no laughter. Only the sound of your own steps, steady, stubborn, echoing against the empty hills. You walk for 2 days in silence, carrying nothing but the smell of smoke and the question the fire left behind. When you shed everything, what part of you still remains? It's just before dawn when you see it. Another building on the horizon, shimmering faintly in the early light. At first it looks like water, then glass. But as you draw closer, you realize it's stone, polished so smooth that it reflects the rising sun like 1,000 small suns. A monastery. Its walls gleam not with gold, but with something stranger, mirrors. Dozens of them set into the stone, each one catching a piece of the world and throwing it back, multiplied and fractured. You approach slowly, uneasy. Would you walk into a house where even the walls are watching you? A monk meets you at the gate, his robe a dull gray that somehow glows in the reflected light. His face is kind, but his eyes are unreadable, like someone who's forgotten the difference between seeing and being seen. "You've come far," he says. "Farther than I meant to," you reply. He smiles faintly. That's how everyone arrives here. He leads you through a narrow corridor lined entirely with mirrors. Your reflection follows you in 1,000 fragments, your face stretched, bent, broken, multiplied. You hardly recognize yourself. The monk gestures to one of the walls. "Here, every pilgrim leaves a reflection," he says. You blink. "How do you leave a reflection?" He nods toward a small basin of water beneath the glass. "Stand before it. Breathe. The mirror will remember." You hesitate. You've left offerings at shrines, coins at crosses, words in prayer. But never this yourself. Would you look directly at your face after weeks of road, hunger, and storm? Would you dare to see what the world sees when it glances your way? You step closer. The mirror stares back, unflinching, ancient, merciless. For the first time in months, you see what the journey has done. Eyes rimmed in red, hair streaked with dust, lips cracked, skin weathered like old paper. You look like every road you've walked. The monk speaks softly behind you. "This place was founded by men who believed salvation came from knowing your own reflection." You glance at him. "Did they find it?" He smiles, not kindly, not cruelly. "They found silence." You stare at the mirror again. For a moment, it feels alive, shifting slightly like the image is breathing. You reach out, almost expecting to feel warmth. But your fingers meet only cold glass. You whisper, half to yourself, half to it, "Who are you now?" The reflection doesn't answer, but somehow you do. Inside, quietly, no one and everyone. You don't realize you've been crying until a tear hits the basin below. The monk steps forward, laying a hand on your shoulder. "Don't grieve." The face changes, but the walker remains. He leads you deeper into the monastery. Other mirrors line the halls, some cracked, some clouded with age. In each one, you catch glimpses of yourself from odd angles, younger, older, distorted. Feels like walking through your own memory. Finally, he brings you to a small room at the center. Here, there are no mirrors, only a single candle burning before a blank wall. "This is where we pray," he says. "To what?" you ask. "To what's left when you stop looking." He leaves you there. You sit in silence, staring at the bare wall. For the first time, you feel invisible in the best possible way, not hidden, but freed from the need to exist in anyone's eyes, even your own. The candle flickers, small but stubborn. Outside, the wind rattles the mirrored walls, scattering fragments of light across the stone floor. You breathe in, and for a moment you understand, not fully but enough, that perhaps the journey was never about finding new places, but about shedding the faces you've worn in each of them. When you finally rise, dawn has fully broken. You thank the monk at the gate. He nods once, eyes shining like two small mirrors. "Remember," he says, "the face you leave here is not the one you'll find again." You step back onto the road. Behind you, the monastery gleams, a fortress made of sunlight and silence. Ahead, the world waits, unreflected and raw. So tell me, when you meet your own reflection, do you recognize it, or do you flinch? And if you could leave your face behind like an old shell, would you walk lighter or lose the proof that you ever lived? By mid-morning, the hills open into a plain. At first glance, it's beautiful, soft green fields swaying under a slow wind, dotted with wildflowers that bow and rise like small prayers. The sunlight glints on dew still clinging to the blades, and for the first time in days, the world feels kind again. But the road bends left and you notice something strange. The grass grows in uneven waves as if the earth remembers shapes it no longer shows. You kneel and touch the soil. It's too dark, too rich. The ground here has fed on something more than rain. A milestone half buried in moss catches your eye. The letters carved into it have almost vanished, but one word remains: fallen. You stand still. The wind carries no birdsong, only the low hum of emptiness. Then you realize what this place is. It's a battlefield. Would you walk through a graveyard with no stones, only grass to mark the dead? Would you let the silence of their memory judge your footsteps? You step forward anyway. The air changes, denser, heavier, as if every breath must pass through the ghosts of 1,000 sighs. There are no bones left, no swords, no broken helmets. Only small mounds where the grass grows higher, thicker. The earth has swallowed everything, even the names. A butterfly flutters past, white, almost glowing. It lands on a patch of red flowers that shouldn't be blooming this early in the season. You stare at them. The petals are the exact color of dried blood. Maybe the land remembers in color what it cannot keep in shape. You keep walking. The wind presses against your ears, and for a moment you think you hear voices, faint, layered, distant. A shout, a cry, a clash of metal. But when you turn, there's only grass swaying like a slow, green sea. You kneel again and run your fingers through the soil. It's warm. Too warm. Once, men died here for reasons they barely understood. Kings they never met, flags they couldn't afford to own, fates they never questioned. Now, their reasons have rotted with their bodies. Only the earth remains, impartial, generous, still growing. Would you die for an idea, knowing the ground would one day forget your name but keep your bones? You walk to the center of the field where the land dips slightly, forming a shallow bowl. A rusted spear juts from the soil like a memorial too proud to fall. You brush the dirt away from its shaft. The wood crumbles at your touch. You sit beside it, letting the wind move through your hair. It smells of grass, dust, and something faintly metallic, like a memory refusing to fade. In the distance, a farmer's plow cuts through the field. You watch him for a while, his figure small against the horizon. He pauses sometimes, wiping his brow, then moves on. He's tilling the ghosts, unknowingly turning over the bones of men who once dreamed of living as simply as he does. The irony settles heavy in your chest. The earth forgives quickly. People do not. A whisper runs through the grass, sudden and cold. You turn and see nothing. But it feels as though the field itself just exhaled. Maybe forgiveness isn't silence. Maybe it's the wind saying enough. You lie back and stare at the sky. The clouds drift slowly, indifferent. The world looks peaceful now, healed on the surface, scarred beneath. And you wonder if all peace is like this, not the absence of violence, but its memory softened by time. The thought stays with you as the wind grows colder. You rise, brushing dust from your cloak. Before leaving, you pick one of the red flowers. Its stem bleeds a thin red sap that stains your thumb. You tuck it into your satchel. Not as a souvenir, but as a reminder. Some things must be carried to be understood. You walk again, the grass parting before you, closing behind you. Each step feels quieter, more careful, as though you're walking through someone's dream and you don't want to wake them. At the far edge of the field stands a single tree, old, gnarled, half dead. A crow perches on one of its limbs, watching you. When your eyes meet, it caws once, low and rough, then takes flight. Its shadow crosses the field, briefly turning every blade of grass dark. You watch until it disappears into the horizon. Then you whisper, rest. Not to the bird, but to the thousands who'll never hear it. The wind answers with a sigh that could almost be peace. So tell me, if the land could speak, would you listen to what it remembers? And if you stood where the dead once fell, would you honor their silence, or try to fill it with your own? You follow the field's edge until the grass gives way to mud. Somewhere beyond the reeds, you hear it, the low, steady murmur of water. The sound grows louder as you walk, until the trees open and you stand before a wide, slow-moving river. The surface gleams with the pale shimmer of morning, but it isn't the light that catches your breath. It's what floats upon it. Letters, hundreds of them. Some sealed, some torn open, some folded neatly into small boats. All drifting downstream, carried by a current that moves with the patience of centuries. You step closer, the mud sucking at your boots. One letter brushes against a reed near the bank. You reach down and catch it before the water pulls it away. The ink has run, the words half erased. But you can still make out a line. Forgive me for leaving before dawn. You stand frozen, the paper trembling in your hand. This is no ordinary river. Would you dare to send a message to someone who can no longer read it? And if you could, what would you say? Across the water, you see others kneeling by the bank. Old women, travelers, children, each releasing a folded note into the stream, whispering as they let go. The river catches every secret without complaint. You watch for a while, the scene half sacred, half haunting. A priest in gray robes stands knee-deep in the shallows, gathering the soaked letters that drift back toward him. He wrings them gently and lays them on flat stones to dry, forming a long mosaic of loss. You approach slowly. What is this place, you ask? The priest looks up, eyes pale as river clay. The river of letters, he says. the living right to the dead. The water decides which words are worth keeping. You glance at the current, dozens of letters spinning, sinking, resurfacing. Does it ever answer? He smiles faintly. It always does, just not in ink. He gestures to the stones. Read if you wish. Every traveler does. You kneel beside him. The drying pages flutter in the wind, fragile as moth wings. One reads, "To my mother, the house still smells of bread." Another says, "To my son, I found your toy in the field. I buried it where you fell." And another, barely legible, "To whoever listens, please remember I was here." The words blur as the wind shifts. You feel something in your chest. Not quite sorrow, not quite envy, but the strange ache of knowing how much people need to speak even when no one answers. You look up at the priest. "Do you write letters yourself?" He nods. "Every season. To the man I once was." You can't help but smile. And does he write back? "Only in mistakes I don't repeat." He stands, wringing water from his sleeves. "You can leave one too if you like." Papers by the stones. You hesitate. You've spoken to ghosts before, in dreams, in memory, in the spaces between footsteps. But never like this. You take a piece of damp paper. Your hand shakes as you write. "To the road that took everything. Thank you for what you left. The silence, the scars, the names I never knew I carried. I forgive you." You fold it once, twice, and hold it over the water. Would you let the river carry your words away, knowing they'll dissolve before reaching anyone? Or would you cling to them, afraid that letting go means forgetting? You release it. The current takes it immediately, spinning it in a slow circle before pulling it downstream. For a long time, you watch it drift until it becomes one more white speck among hundreds. The priest speaks softly beside you. When the letters vanish, their meaning remains. The water remembers everything, even what we regret. You stand, the mud cold between your toes. The sky above is heavy with gray clouds, but the light on the river glows faintly gold. A breeze stirs, carrying the smell of ink, clay, and something sweeter, jasmine maybe, or memory itself. You turn to leave, but before you do, the priest calls out. If you walk far enough, the river ends at the sea of names. Every letter that survives floats there forever. He smiles. Some say the dead read them when the moon is high. You nod. Do you believe that? He looks back at the flowing water. I believe the living need to. You take one last look at the drifting letters. 1,000 messages, 1,000 confessions, all carried by a current too slow to notice you're leaving. And you realize something small but sharp. Every word ever written, every prayer ever whispered, is just another letter waiting to be lost. You step back onto the road. The sound of the river fades, but the thought lingers. How many things have you sent into the world, hoping they'd find their way back? And how many have vanished, not lost, but transformed into silence that listens better than any ear? So tell me, if you could write to the past, who would you send your words to? And if you knew the river would carry them beyond sight, would you still let them go? By the time the river's murmur fades behind you, night has fallen again. The road stretches thin beneath your feet, silvered by moonlight. Your breath clouds in the air, and your legs ache with that deep, familiar pain that means you've walked too far for too long. You need shelter, just a wall, a roof, a pause. But the horizon holds nothing. Only the emptiness of open country and the steady whisper of the wind through bare trees. You tell yourself you'll walk another mile, then another, and then out of nowhere you see it. A light. Small, golden, flickering through the dark, like a candle caught in a window. As you approach, the shape resolves. An inn, modest and warm, its thatched roof glowing with lamplight, smoke curling lazily from the chimney. You stop. You don't remember passing this way before. You don't remember any towns nearby. And yet, it stands there as though it's been waiting all along. Would you step into a place that shouldn't exist just because it promises warmth? Or would you keep walking, cold but certain of what's real? Your body decides before your mind does. You push open the door. The air inside is thick with the smell of wood smoke and stew. A fire crackles in the hearth. Tables are scattered with plates, candles, half-empty mugs. Yet, no one speaks. Dozens of people sit in silence. Travelers, all of them judging by their cloaks, their boots still crusted with mud. Some stare into their cups. Others simply sit, eyes half closed, as though listening to something you can't hear. The innkeeper appears, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes that seem too awake for this hour. Welcome, traveler, she says softly. You've walked far. You nod. I didn't think there was an inn on this road. She smiles. There usually isn't. Not until someone needs one. Her words hang in the air like a riddle, but you're too tired to ask. She gestures toward the fire. Warm yourself. The stew's still hot. You sit near the hearth, letting the heat seep into your bones. A bowl appears in front of you, thick broth, dark bread, simple, perfect. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful like it's proof you're still alive. Only then do you notice what's missing. There's no sound of spoons against bowls, no scrape of chairs. The other travelers eat without noise, without motion, as if trapped in the rhythm of a dream. You glance at the innkeeper. She's watching you, not unkindly, but with that faint smile people wear when they already know how the story ends. Where am I, you ask? She tilts her head. Between here and where you were going. That's not a place. It is tonight. You laugh softly, a breath of disbelief. Is this real? She shrugs. Does it matter? You're warm, aren't you? She moves away to tend the fire. The flames leap higher, casting shadows that seem almost alive. Faces, maybe, or memories you thought you'd left behind. The man sitting nearest to you leans closer. His voice is low, like a whisper carried from far away. I came here last winter, he says. Left before dawn. When I looked back, there was nothing but fog. You study him. His eyes glimmer with reflection, not firelight. How did you find it again, you ask? He smiles, slow and tired. I didn't. Maybe it found me. Would you believe a stranger who speaks like a ghost but smiles like a friend? The night deepens. The other travelers begin to fade one by one, not leaving, just softening, their outlines dimming like candle smoke. The innkeeper hums a tune beneath her breath. It sounds like something ancient, something meant to keep the dark away. You feel your eyelids grow heavy. She notices. There's a bed upstairs, she says. Third door on the left. It's yours. You rise, unsteady, and climb the stairs. The floorboards creak softly under your feet, like sighs of old would remembering footsteps long gone. Your room is small, a narrow bed, a single candle, a window that looks out on nothing but black sky. You sit on the edge of the bed. The blankets smell faintly of rain and smoke. You tell yourself you'll only rest your eyes for a moment. The next thing you know, sunlight is pouring through the window. Birdsong fills the air. The room is empty, too empty. No sound from below. No smell of smoke or stew. You rush downstairs. The tables are bare. The hearth is cold. Outside there's no inn at all. Only grass, the faint imprint of your footprints leading nowhere. You stand there for a long time, heart beating fast, the wind tugging at your cloak. Then you see something half buried in the soil. A small wooden sign, worn smooth by time. The letters are faded, but you can still read them. Rest when you must. The road waits for everyone. You smile, just barely, and whisper, "Thank you." Then you shoulder your pack and walk on, your steps lighter, though you're not sure why. So tell me, if comfort came to you only in dreams, would you still take it? And if you woke to find your refuge gone, would you call it a lie or a mercy? The road bends east and narrows until it becomes little more than a trail carved between cliffs. The wind picks up, whispering through the stones, faint, broken syllables, too soft to be words but too deliberate to be chants. Then, in the valley below, you see it, a bridge. It stretches across a gorge old as anything you've ever seen. Stone arches worn smooth by rain and time, the surface slick with moss. Mist clings to the air around it, so thick that the far side looks like another world. You stand at its edge, staring. Someone once told you that bridges are sacred places, neither land nor sky, neither past nor future. The spaces between things, they said, are where truth hides. Would you step onto a bridge that speaks in the voices of those who never made it across? You take the first step. The stone is cold, damp beneath your boots. Another whisper rises, faint, curling through the fog. At first you think it's the wind again, but no, it has rhythm, shape. A voice, low, distant, like a memory half remembered. You pause. Who's there? The bridge answers with another sound, softer this time, almost kind. Your name. You freeze. It says it again, gentle, patient, as if calling from across years. But no one alive should know that name, not here, not now. You keep walking. The whispers grow, overlapping, weaving around each other like threads. Some are pleading, some laughing. Some speak words you almost recognize, words you've heard once in dreams. Don't stop. Turn back. It's only far if you're afraid. You try to focus on the far side, a faint outline of trees through the mist. But the bridge feels longer now. The air grows heavier, the sound thicker. Each step seems to echo not once, but twice, as if someone walks beside you unseen. Would you listen if the past called your name, even knowing it meant losing your way forward? You stop halfway across. The river below churns in slow motion like molten glass. You kneel and press your palm to the stone. It hums faintly, alive. For a moment, the mist shifts, and you see them. Shadows, faint and flickering, walking alongside you. Some carry lanterns. Some clutch their hearts. Each one moving toward the far side, none looking back. You whisper, "Who are you?" One turns its head, just enough for you to see your own eyes staring back. Then the mist swallows them again. You stand frozen, breath shallow. Maybe the bridge doesn't lead to another place at all. Maybe it leads through yourself. Every version you've been, every one that fell away so you could keep walking. The whispers change tone, softer now, like a lullaby hummed through stone. You catch fragments. It's all right. You're still here. We made it this far, didn't we? You walk again. The fog thins. The air smells of wet earth and wild thyme. The final steps feel lighter than the first, not because the bridge has shortened, but because something has loosened inside you. When you reach the other side, the sun breaks through the clouds, a thin, trembling beam that touches your face like absolution. You turn back. The bridge is empty. The mist is gone. The wind is silent. For a moment, you wonder if it was ever there at all. Then you notice the carvings along the stone rail, faint lines etched deep. Names. Hundreds of them overlapping, layered by centuries. You run your fingers across them and find yours among them, already there, already fading. You exhale, a sound halfway between a laugh and a prayer. Maybe that's what the bridge does. It doesn't steal your name. It remembers it for you when you've forgotten how to. The path ahead curves toward the horizon, golden under the sun. You take one last look at the bridge, still and ancient. And just as you turn away, you think you hear a single voice, faint, carried by the wind. Thank you. You smile, unsure if it's yours or theirs. So tell me, if a place remembered every word you ever said, would you dare to cross it? And if the voice that called your name was your own, would you answer or keep walking? The path from the bridge winds through a valley veiled in mist. Birdsong fades the deeper you go, replaced by something stranger, the hush of a world holding its breath. Then out of the fog, rooftops appear. A village. It's small, tucked between hills like a secret. Chimneys smoke. A well stands in the center. Chickens wander the streets. For once, everything looks peaceful, almost normal. But as you walk closer, a faint unease creeps in. There are no signs. No carved name on the gate. No markers at all. You step into the square. A few villagers glance your way, curious but not unfriendly. Their clothes are plain, their faces soft, their eyes dim. Not dull, just empty in a way you can't quite name, as though each one has misplaced something important and forgotten to notice. A woman approaches, carrying a basket of apples. "Welcome," she says kindly. "You've come far." You nod. "What is this place called?" She blinks. Her smile falters. For a long moment, she just stands there, as though the question itself has unmoored her. Then she laughs awkwardly. "Oh, well, it's home." You frown. "But what's its name?" She looks around as if expecting someone else to answer. Others nearby pause too. A blacksmith, a boy fetching water, an old man leaning on a cane. They exchange uncertain glances. Finally, the old man speaks, voice thin and brittle. "It had a name once," he says. "We just can't remember it. Would you trust a place that can't recall what it's called? Would you stay in a town that's forgotten its own existence?" The woman shrugs as if to dismiss the unease. "Names come and go," she says gently. "What matters is we're here." Then she presses an apple into your hand. You look tired. You thank her and bite. It's sweet, but faintly sour underneath, like fruit that doesn't quite belong to any season. As you walk through the village, the pattern repeats. You greet a weaver. She smiles but hesitates when you ask what she's making. You meet a farmer. He can't recall how long he's lived here. The church has no cross, no bell, no records. Only candles that never seem to burn down. Time itself feels thin, elastic. The sun hangs low all afternoon, never quite setting. You stop at the inn, if it can be called that. A single room, a single table, a single man behind it, polishing the same cup again and again. "Can I stay the night?" you ask. He nods. "Of course. You're welcome." "What do I owe you?" He frowns, confused. "Oh." You study him. "What do you charge?" He tilts his head. "We don't use those words here." He gestures toward the door. "You may rest upstairs. The room will remember you." The phrase chills you. Still, you climb the narrow staircase, your boots echoing in the still air. Your room is small. A bed, a mirror, a window looking out over fields that seem to stretch forever. You drop your pack and sit by the window watching. The fields glow faintly in the dusk as though lit from below. You realize what it is: patches of pale flowers, countless thousands of them, blooming across the hills like ghosts rising from the soil. You've seen them before. At the battlefield. You rush downstairs. The innkeeper looks up. "These flowers," you say, "they grow where blood was spilled, don't they?" He blinks as if hearing the idea for the first time. "I suppose," he says, "but they've always been there." You step outside. The villagers stand quietly now, watching you. Not with hostility, just with the vacant patience of people who've forgotten what curiosity feels like. And then you understand. This village isn't built on old ground. It is old ground, the bones of an erased war, the survivors and descendants so bound to forgetting that even the land joined in. You whisper, "You've forgotten your sorrow." The old man from before nods faintly. "It was easier," he says. "To forget the pain, we had to forget everything else. Would you give up your memories to erase your suffering? And if you did, would the peace that followed still be yours, or just an echo?" The woman with the apple steps forward. "You look like you still remember things," she says softly. "That must be heavy." You nod. "Then leave it here," she offers. "The air here is good at keeping secrets." You almost believe her. Almost. But then you look at their faces, serene, timeless, hollow. And you realize forgetting isn't peace. It's surrender. You shake your head. "I can't." She smiles sadly. "Then you'll keep walking. The road always finds those who still remember." By dawn, the fog lifts. You leave quietly, the village already fading behind you, its outlines softening like a dream unraveling at the edges. When you glance back one last time, it's gone. Only the empty valley remains, carpeted with white flowers swaying in the wind. You whisper, "Goodbye," though you're not sure anyone is left to hear. The wind carries the faintest sound in reply. Not words, not music, just something that might once have been a name. So tell me, if you could forget every pain you've carried, would you trade your memories for peace? And if peace meant losing the story of who you are, would you still call it peace? The hills fall away long before you see it. You smell it first, salt, wind, something vast and clean. Then you hear it, faint but steady, the breathing of the sea. The road narrows to a ribbon of pale stone that slides down toward a shimmering horizon. For the first time in what feels like lifetimes, there is nothing ahead but light. You keep walking. The air grows cooler, sharper, tasting of iron and memory. Each gust carries whispers, not voices now but sensations. Barn smoke, laughter, rain on old roofs. Every step feels lighter, as if the weight of all the miles behind you is falling away grain by grain. And then, at last, the world opens. The ocean spreads before you, infinite and mercilessly calm. Waves roll in slow rhythm, curling white at the edges, breaking against the shore like the pulse of something ancient that never learned how to stop. The sun hangs low, gold bleeding into gray. You stand at the edge of the land. Behind you, the fields of memory, the bridge of whispers, the nameless village. Ahead, everything and nothing. Would you step into the water, knowing it erases every footprint it touches? Would you let the sea take the last trace of your journey? The sand is cold beneath your feet. You kneel, running your fingers through it, fine, glimmering, full of tiny shells like fossilized stars. Each one a fragment of something that lived, died, and returned as beauty. You whisper, "Is this it?" The wind answers by lifting your hair, brushing it across your face like a mother's hand. You close your eyes. A voice behind you, soft, familiar. "You made it." You turn. It's the monk from the monastery of mirrors. Or perhaps the innkeeper. Or the old man from the village. You can't tell. They all blur together now, every face from the road merging into one calm presence. "Is this the end?" you ask. He smiles. "It's an end. The road keeps others." He gestures toward the sea. "Everyone arrives here eventually. some to rest, some to begin again. You frown. How do I know which I am? He tilts his head. You already do. You look back at the horizon. The sea is glowing now, the last light of day painting it in molten silver. For a moment, you think you see shapes moving beneath the surface. Letters, faces, reflections of every story you've carried. Then they vanish into the waves. You realize the sea isn't an end. It's a mirror too, vast enough to hold everything you've been. You step closer until the water reaches your boots. The waves lap softly, tugging, inviting. The cold bites, but it's clean, cleansing, almost kind. You think of the river of letters, of the bridge that whispered your name, of the people who forgot themselves so they could rest. And you understand, every place you've passed was teaching you how to let go, without disappearing. Would you surrender everything you've carried if it meant becoming part of something endless? And if you did, would you lose yourself, or finally find what was left after everything else washed away? You remove your cloak and let it fall. The wind takes it, tossing it into the surf. You wade deeper. The monk watches but does not follow. He only nods as if this too was always part of the road. The water reaches your waist. Your breath catches. It's colder now, sharper, but you don't flinch. You keep walking until the next wave lifts you gently, then lowers you again, like a question the sea isn't done asking. You stop there where land ends and the unknown begins. And for the first time, you don't feel the urge to move forward or backward, only to be. The sun touches the horizon. The sky turns the color of forgiveness, soft gold fading into blue. You whisper one last question, half to the sea, half to yourself. Was the journey worth it? The tide slides forward, covering your footprints. Then the water pulls back, leaving the sand smooth, whole, untouched. You smile. And though no one else is there to hear it, you swear you can feel the road exhale. Relieved, grateful, alive. When you turn back, the trail behind you is already fading into mist. But that's all right. You remember enough. And for now, that is everything. So tell me, if you reached the end of your road and the sea waited with open arms, would you step forward, or would you turn back and build another path?